Today, on episode 2 of the Play Guitar podcast, I uncover the ups and downs of recording and playing direct guitar. It's not as easy as it seems. Also, we've got some other guitar news and another installment of Making a Band, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Play Guitar podcast. I'm Lee, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. So today, on episode 2 of the Play Guitar podcast, we're going to be talking about the topic of playing and recording guitar direct. One of the reasons for this podcast is it's a bit selfish because this is episode 2. I'm getting things together. I've got a lot of stuff I want to show you, and I need to have my guitar in the podcast so you can hear it. And I need my electric guitar, basically. And this is where the problem starts. I'm an amp and pedal guy. I will usually just turn the amp on, crank some pedals, and I'm good to go. I could show you what's going on. But the problem with that is in this podcast, I'm in the same room as all my stuff. And so if I turn the amp up, cranked it up, it's going to bleed into the microphone, probably overload it. It's just going to sound crappy. So I need some way to play my guitar where it goes from my guitar into something and directly into the recording software, so it's not making a bunch of loud noise in the room. My pedals, my amps, my guitars, I've been playing for a long time, and I've got my sound, which is nice. It takes a while to get there, but I've got it. I've got the right combo of everything that gets the job done. And I'm planning an episode. We'll go through all the kind of stuff that I've got. It takes a lot of experimentation to get to this point, and really, it's not. The stuff I've got isn't the fanciest and the most expensive stuff. I've gravitated towards things that work for me. And what works for me is not going to be the same as the same amps and guitars and pedals that work for you. Everybody's different. Have you ever heard two people play the same thing on the same guitar? One person sounds one way and the other person sounds another way, even if they use the same gear. So I've got my own things that I like. But excuse me, it's been super cold here. I'm in the South, and today it was 25 degrees this morning. I'm not used to it, so excuse me if I do a little coughing. But basically, if I go out to a gig, I can get my sound very easily. But I've been struggling with direct guitar for a long time. I've had a love-hate relationship with it since I started, since about 1985. That's when I got my first direct guitar things. It was a Rockman. I don't know if you remember those or not. That's the guy from Boston, Tom Schultz, who made these direct guitar things. I bought one of those. That was my first trip into this kind of stuff. So my usual pattern is I spend a lot of money. I get it home. I work with the stuff. I'm never really satisfied with it. And then over time, I go right back to my amps and my pedals. But, and that happens over and over and over and over again. But here I am again, with a new reason to get into direct guitar. It's this podcast. And honestly, I've never been able to get my tone from plugging straight in, but we're going to work on it right here. I know it's possible. I've heard a lot of other people sound fabulous with analog and digital direct tones. I've been fooled. I've thought that there's no way that's direct. That's an amp. It's gotten a lot better. So I'm positive that I'm going to get some really good tones for you guys today. But so usually what happens with this is I usually go through the stuff I already have. I haven't gotten rid of everything. And I try to find something that works. Several years ago, I went through one of these times. I bought several things. I still have a lot of it, not all of it, but here's the stuff I have. I've got an old Digitech RP. I think it's a 355 unit. I've never really used a whole lot. I've got several SansAmp and SansAmp-like pedals, and I still use those, though they've been my favorite up till now for quick recording. If you hear the making the band section of these, I'm starting to show you the songs that I'm writing, and I'm giving you all the quick recordings that I've just little snippets of parts of songs, and I think they're all with the Sans amp. I also have an Axe track, which is a little ISO cab, and we'll talk about what those are in a minute or two. I have a Line 6 HD 500X, and that is one of these modeler floorboards. It's not the newest. I'll just say that right now. And the last thing I have is I've got some S-Gear, a Scuffum plugin for my recording software, and we're going to listen to that too. Of all these, the only ones that I've been using is my Sans amp, and that's for the quick ideas. But if I do have a serious recording I need to do, I usually will spend the time, mic my amp, and try and get a good sound there. Also, today I'm going to do a bit of an overview of just what recording direct guitar is in general, and then I'll talk about my opinions, the pros and cons of playing direct and recording direct, and what to look for if you decide to go down this route. Also, touch on what's the best products for direct recording today, and then we've got another installment of guitar news and making the band at the end. So let's go ahead and get into it right now. Okay, let's get into it. Recording and playing direct guitar in 2018, where we're at right now. Sometimes when you deal with a topic like this, it's a big topic, it's pretty complicated, little tedious. It's smart to kind of back up and get a bit of perspective about it. So we're going to start from the beginning. We're going to talk about what direct recording and playing is, why you would even want to do it, and what the different devices that are available, the pros and cons, and we're going to do a little shootout. I've got all the stuff that I've got here. I'm going to do a little clip on each one, and we're going to take a listen to it and kind of figure out what I'm going to use to start bringing a lot of this content to you on the podcast. Okay, so let's get into that. What is direct recording and playing? It's very simple. It's what you do to get your guitar sound without using an amplifier into a microphone in the room, without making a whole bunch of noise in the room, being able to get a cranked amp sound, a really nice guitar sound, directly into a mixer or into a recording device. It's been a challenge over the years, and here's some of the reasons why you would even want to do it. One, amps are super loud. To get some of the sounds on a 100-watt Marshall that you want, you'd have to really crank that thing up, and it's loud. You may not be able to, do that, especially live in an apartment or in a neighborhood where the houses are kind of close together, or you're around a bunch of businesses that, they're not going to stand for that. So also, it's not good for your ears. We're going to have a whole podcast on tinnitus and protecting your ears and why it's so important. But anyway, that's number one. Amps are super loud. Number two is the places that we play lately, they're not putting up with this volume, this high pressure volume anymore. They're not. They've decided that, hey, you don't have to be that loud anymore. We're just not going to take it. So sometimes you're in a place that you've got to stay under a certain volume, and you can't get your sound on your amp, that way. So you've got to come up with a different solution. I know a lot of guys that play in church, they want you to run direct. That way that the guy behind the mixing board has all the controls, and you're not overwhelming the rest of the stage. So that's number two. Places aren't willing to put up with that high volume anymore. Number three is ear fatigue, which we talked about a little bit before, where, you gotta keep your ears, gotta protect your ears. Number five, recording at home. So a lot of times at home, you've got to stay quiet, obviously, because you've got other people there, and you want to get your recording done. But there's another reason why you might, the opposite way is that you may want to keep everyone else everyone else's noise out of your recordings. So, you might be recording your amp and all of a sudden the dog decides that he's going to bark at the mailman and that's on your track. So whether it's there's a bad track that you've got to re-record. Somebody might be mowing the lawn outside. Someone, might be screaming and running around the house having fun. Who knows? Who knows what it is? But if you're plugging in direct and recording direct, it doesn't matter. They could be making tons of noise and you're going to have a nice, clean track. So direct recording at home, number 4. Number 5 is you may not have a lot of different guitar sounds. These direct recording devices that you have, they have tons of different amps in them in different tones. And you might have a song where you need different kinds of sounds. You might need a Fender sound and then a Marshall sound, maybe a Mesa sound. You need a whole bunch of sounds. And it's expensive to have all of those amps on hand. So you get a lot of different sounds for the money. So that's number 5. And the last one, number 6. Well, it's just this number 6 is just for me. You might be recording a podcast and you need to keep the guitar sound out of the vocal mic. And that's where I am right now. So excuse me again, here it goes. This is this coldest time of the year and I'm stuffed up again. Here we go. So the different direct recording devices and amps that are available. Let's start from the most basic and go all the way through all the different ones that are available. The most basic is the jack on your preamp, mixer, or interface. So you take your guitar, you get your 1/4-inch cable, plug it in, and on the other end of that cable, plug it into your mixer or plug it into your USB device, interface, Firewire device, whatever that you're running. So this has happened a lot. You hear old Beatles albums where they plug into a preamp, distort the preamp, and get, I think it was Revolution, and get their sounds that way. A lot of old songs had that sound. I remember definitely some ZZ Top. We'll go through some of these songs a little bit later on, but there's some classic songs that are recorded just clean like that, straight into the mixer. It's a different kind of sound. I think the Van Halen Finish What You Started. I think that clean part was recorded just straight in too. So anyway, that's the easiest way. Just plug in. Number 2 is using a direct box. You'll see these on stages. They're the little rectangular boxes, and you can plug into a direct box with your 1/4-inch guitar cable, and then you'll see on the coming out of the box is a mic cord, an XLR cord. It changes the sound, so it's optimal for that XLR cord to go into a mixer. These little boxes, that's what they're originally for, just to get those signals in there. These little boxes, they have a sound to them. I know that the standard is that Countryman, it's a DT85. I think Nile Rodgers used that for, he swears by that one. They're made to go in and get you a clean sound, but they actually color the sound a little bit. There's another one you see all the time, the Behringer. It's Ultra DI 100, and that's because it's cheap and it works. So, but those are made. You see keyboard players plugging into them from their 1/4-inch outputs, and they gets a nice XLR cable that fits with a mixer real well. Okay, so going past that, now we're going to start getting some things that we could get our distortion sounds as well through. Those are usually just for clean that we've talked about so far. The first one we're going to talk about is isolation cabs, ISO cabs. These are usually wooden boxes, and inside the box, you've got a speaker and you've got a microphone. And how you do those is you take your amplifier, and instead of plugging into the speaker that you already have in your amplifier, if it's a combo, you would not use that. You actually will come out of your speaker out and go into this box and have it plugged into the little speaker that's inside, or that, could be a regular size, but the speaker that's inside. Then the microphone that's in that box, you would plug a mic cord into that and then plug it into whatever you're wanting to go into direct, your mixer or your interface. And what that does is it keeps the noise down. It isolates the noise from the speaker, and the microphone's inside. It's not outside, so you're not having to fill the room with speaker, and it drastically reduces the sound. Let's see. The Randall ISO Cab 12 is one you see a lot. And that one's kind of nice because you open the top up, you can put an actual 12-inch big guitar speaker in there, and you can actually use any mic you want. It's got a little mic arm right there. Yeah, the Randall ISO 12. I think I saw Billy Gibbons use that one time. And you put the top back on and then you crank your amp, and you're not blowing everybody away by it, and just record it. You're actually recording the speaker from your amp. It's a good alternative to just miking an amp in a room. And there's another one. This is the one I have. It's called an Axe Track. I got this probably, 10 years ago, something like that. It's a smaller box. It uses a mini speaker and a mini little microphone in there. It works the same way, but you can't get inside it. You can't change the speaker out or the microphone. They have them for guitar and bass and lots of different things. And we'll listen to one of those later on today because I'm going to use that as one of our sound tests. The next one is a speaker simulator. And I bought one of these a long time ago. I bought one. It's called a Hughes and Kettner Red Box. And basically what happens is it goes in line between your amplifier and your speaker, and it allows you to plug an XLR, a mic cord into it, and go to the mixer. And what happens is it has the sound of a mic speaker cabinet in it. So you don't have to put a microphone on stage in front of your amplifier. That's what I bought it for. And sound guys love it because you're not getting bleed from all sorts of different instruments. It's a good way to isolate your sound, and they can do a little bit more with the guitar sound. But it's also good for recording your amp. And there's another one called the Behringer Ultra G. It's a GI 100, and I have one of those too. I use that for recording, and it basically does the same thing as the Redbox does. It's a speaker simulator. It gives you a simulated microphone come out. I think those are analog too. Okay, next on the list is analog amp simulators. These are just pedals you plug into and come out the other end, go into your mixer, and it sounds like a full amp, mic'd up, sounding great. They're all analog devices, so they sound pretty good. They feel good when you play them. That's one thing you'll notice about a lot of these digital ones that we're going to get to in a minute. They don't feel quite the same as playing an amp, but the SansAmp stuff sounds pretty good. They also have another one called the Rockman. I told you about one of the first ones I bought, and that sound gives that sound of the band Boston. The really Wall of Marshall kind of sounds. But the SansAmp will do several different sounds. Each one will do. The older ones had multiple sounds. The newer ones, they have one pedal for each sound, a British sounding pedal or a Voxy sounding pedal or an American sounding pedal. Those are from Tech 21. Okay, so now we've made it all the way to digital amp simulators. I bought a lot of these. Let's talk about some of them, the ones you might know about. The Line 6 Pod, the little red bean looking thing everybody bought for a while. I also have an HD 500X, the Floor Pod, and the 11 Rack was one a lot of people have. Graham Cochran from Recording Revolution gets great results with one, still uses one today. Sounds awesome. And then you have a lot of other companies that came out with these: Digitech, Roland, Vox, PV, Behringer, Yamaha. Everybody seemed to have one of these. And basically what they are is it's computer simulated amplifiers. They actually go through all the parts of the resistors and capacitors of the amp. They go through and they model those digitally and put them in a chip and a pedal. So you can have a working amp, a digital recreation of a working amp. And they didn't sound awesome at first. Everybody thought they were great, but it took a while to get those kind of right. And here we are now. The next incarnation of those. So we have the digital amp simulators, but they're using impulses. They're using better sounding speakers and microphone sounds. And we'll talk a little bit about what impulses are. An impulse is basically a recording of the speakers and the microphone. How they do that is they send a test tone through your speaker cabinet, and you record that, and then they have a program that removes that test tone, and everything that's left is the sound, the air, maybe the sound of your speaker cabinet being mic'd. And they're really realistic, and they're really helping things move along. We've got some new ones that use those, the Amplifier, the Axe Effects, the Kemper, and the Helix, which the Helix is from line 6. And they're really doing good. And you've got everyone who swears by one or two of those. Some people have more than one or two, but getting great results recording. They're also expensive. So I don't have any of those right now, but I'm working towards it. After that, we've got just the plain software. I used to have Line 6 Pod Farm. You just plug into your recording device, and it would take care of all of it inside your DAW, inside your recording software. Now I use Scuffham's S-Gear. What a great guy, too. I just needed to. I had some problems setting one up on my new computer, and I emailed Mike, and he got right back to me. We fixed the problem, and I am up and running. Really happy with that. I've had this for a long time. It's a pretty cool little plug-in. You also see a lot of people using it now because it's part of a big Steven Slate package that he gave. He combined that with them. And it's pretty neat. We're going to hear that a little bit later on. And also there's one called Bias that a lot of people are using right now. So that is the list of methods that you can use for recording or playing direct, and some products you could use to make that happen. But let's talk about the pros and cons. What's the pros of recording direct? The pros are it doesn't disturb anyone else. Another big pro for it is you can save presets to get exactly the same tone again and again. Guys who use tube amps know they don't always sound the same. And actually from room to room, they don't sound the same. You might get a great tone playing one place, then you play another club and it doesn't sound anything like it. Also the temperature, all sorts of stuff can affect tube amps. So if you get a great sound with one of these digital amp simulators, you can use that over and over and over and over again. Another pro about this is usually these products that you would get to do this are usually lighter than amps. Amps are heavy. Transformers and amps, speakers, cabinets, they all weigh a lot. And, when you're young, no problem. But as you get a little bit older, it takes a toll on you after a while. So carrying around a floor pod or something like that, that's a lot easier than carrying a big amp around. And lastly, you could get some sounds from your direct recording devices that you wouldn't normally be able to get. You wouldn't be able to afford a lot of these amps, especially, a Dumble, which can be crazy prices, ridiculous crazy prices. If you own a Kemper, I know there's some great profiles of Dumbles on there. And also other amps, you just can't afford, most people can't afford more than a few amps. So you can get the sounds that you normally wouldn't be able to afford. The cons of the direct recording devices are a lot of players say they don't feel right. That tube amps have a feel to them that guitar players like, and a lot of these digital things, they don't quite feel right. Another big con is when you use these things, they have a lot of menus and adjustments that you can make to them. And some people find that they are always adjusting this and not actually playing the guitar, which is what you bought the stuff for in the first place. So they can be a little overwhelming with all of the setup work it takes to get that great sound that you're looking for. Some people love that though. Some people love to get real nitpicky with their sound, and so that's another con. They take too much time to get set up sometimes. So let's talk about some classic recordings that used direct guitar. First one I love is Black Dog by Led Zeppelin. I didn't really realize that it was an overloaded guitar direct into a I think it was a compressor and then a preamp, or was it two compressors? I just read about that yesterday. I'll try and find that article and link to it in the show notes. But listening back to it, yeah, you can hear that it's not quite that Marshall sound or the small amp sounds that Jimmy Page would use in the recording studio. It's got a direct sound to it. Pretty neat. The big one also, Le Freak by Chic, Nile Rodgers. He would always use direct guitar to get that clean kind of disco-y bright sound. Revolution with the Beatles, and also I read about the solo for the song Taxman by the Beatles. Those were all recorded direct into one of the preamps at Abbey Road Studios. Those are some classic examples that people have used them. I talked about the Van Halen song earlier, but now everybody's using this stuff. It's way too many to list. So what are the best ones you could buy now to get the best direct sounds? There's kind of a big three that's been this way for a few years. The big one everyone talks about is the Kemper Profiler head. It is amazing. The one that looks like a lunchbox, I'm here on Sweetwater, and it's $1,799, $1,799. And it profiles full amps. It's got 200 factory presets. You can profile your own amps. And everything I've heard from that has been awesome. The next one that people swear by is the Axe-Fx. And the Axe-Fx 2 XL Plus is the one that's out now. I'm over at Fractal, and it says sale price $17.99. So it looks like they are competing with each other now. $17.99. And people love that. They also have a floorboard called the I think it's the AX8, and really cool stuff. I like it. There's a Stevie Ray Vaughan sound that I heard someone playing from Axe-Fx that just nailed that sound perfectly. So that's a neat one. And then the last one, this is the newer one of the bunch. Line 6 came out with the Helix guitar multi-effects. It's a floor processor. It's kind of like the HD500X I have, except sounds a lot better. And that is $14.99. So those are the big three. If you've got $1,800, go for the Kemper or the Axe-Fx. And if you don't have quite that much, there's the Helix for $14.99. You can't go wrong with all three of those. Those are the kind of the state of where we're going right now, as far as, isolated box. I kind of am interested in the software stuff, and we're going to listen to right now. Actually, we're going to go ahead and get up my files. Last night I went through and recorded a loop and recorded it through all of the direct recording stuff I have here, and I'm going to have to make a decision. You can help me with that. Which one sounds the best? All right, so let me go ahead and get that started, and we'll get some sound samples for you right now. Okay, for each of these samples, we're going to use my Stratocaster into my pedal board, and on my pedal board is where my looper is. We're going to be looping this pedal. I'm running through one pedal. It's a BB preamp. That's usually how I run. I roll down for clean with the BB preamp and then roll up for some crunch. So they'll all have, you'll see here in the example, it'll start off clean and then I'll roll up for some crunch. And we're going to go through each one of these different ways of recording direct and hear what they sound like. The first one's going to be the Axe Track. This is the ISO box. So I'm plugged into an amp. I'm using an old, it's a Crate V16 that I use for recording here in the studio. And that's plugged into the ISO box and then plugged directly into my mixer. So here's what that sounds like. Okay, so what do I think about that? It's okay. It's not real bright. It's a little flatter sounding than I'd like, but I mean it is the sound of an amp, and it sounds okay. So let let's move on next. The next one I have is the oldest digital box I have. It's a Digitech RP355. Let's listen to that. Okay, so that one you can you hear its age a little bit. It has kind of a weird mid range to it to me, and it's knowing how some of the newer things come out. It just sounds a little dated to me. So let's move on to the next one, which will be the Flyrig. So this is a Tech 21 direct recording floorboard. And I bought that for an acoustic gig. So when I wanted to play electric guitar on an acoustic gig, and I ended up not using it. It didn't cut through the way I liked it, but let's take a listen to what it sounds like here. Yeah, I was surprised by this one. I a lot of the SansAmps, they do have a certain sound to them. You can pick them out here and there, but it really sounded pretty nice. And so I was pretty impressed with this one. And so let's keep going. We'll come back to it. Let's keep going to the next one. That was the SansAmp GT2 pedal, and it's more of a classic SansAmp. I did put a little reverb on this one and the next two because those pedals don't have reverb, just to make them sound a little bit nicer. I didn't like this one as much as I liked the Flyrig. I thought the Flyrig sounded really good. Flyrig has its own reverb on it, by the way. My tone usually is a Marshall clean sound with the pedal in front of it. And I try to do that on these pedals. Some of them you can't. Some of them don't have a Marshall sound, but I try to make them sound as good as possible. Let's move on to the next one. This is American Sound by Joyo. It's kind of a Tech 21 style pedal. That was a Joyo American Sound. It's supposed to sound like a Fender type direct box there, and it was okay. It didn't really do it for me though. So let's move on to the next one. This will be the Joyo British. This is supposed to be a Marshall sounding pedal. Okay, that was a Joyo British, and that's moving in the right direction. It still doesn't sound quite so like a real amp to me, but it's got that Marshall kind of character that I like. So the next is going to be the Line 6 FloorPod HD 500X. Let's take a listen to that. Okay, so that's the HD 500X, and it's better. It sounds a little more like an amp in a room, not 100%, but it's getting better. And so we got one left to listen to. That's the S Gear. That's the software plugin where everything's done inside the computer. Let's take a listen to that one. So to me, that's my favorite. That's the one I like. It really makes me feel, I can see the amp being recorded in my mind, if that makes any sense. To me, that's the one I like the most. And so for my opinion, is between the Fly Rig and the S Gear, and I put the S Gear on top easily, but I was pretty impressed by the Fly Rig. I wasn't expecting that to sound so nice. So for my opinion right now, which will change over time, I think I'm going to go with the S Gear, the Scuffum plugin software, to bring all of the content to you through the podcast that I'm wanting to do. So that's it. We talked about the kind of the history of recording guitar. We went through all the different ways you'd use it, some products that you'd use to go from one point to another. I've had some examples of the stuff I had. I didn't have all the greatest stuff, but I got some pretty good results. We had all those examples, and I kind of picked a winner, I think, is the S Gear, and asked you what you thought about that. But, what have you used for recording direct or playing direct? Do you keep giving up like me and going back to amps, or have you found something that really gives you your sound? Leave me a comment on the show page. It's playguitarpodcast.com/episode 2. That's the number 2, episode 2. Or you can tweet at me at playguitarpdcst, Play Guitar Podcast, on Twitter, and I'd love to hear how you're doing with direct guitar and direct playing. Guitar news. Okay, we got a couple things I wanted to share with you today. This is from CNBC, and the title of this says, "Forget stocks and bonds, invest in collectible guitars," says ZZ Top frontman Billy Gibbons. It says here, he says, investing in guitars is a good place to start, says ZZ Top's Billy Gibbons. 6 strings are a favorite of millions and can be valuable in both new and old conditions. He also goes in to talk about some of the other things he invests in, but this is great for all of us married folks. And even if you're living at home with your parents, and you keep getting guitars, and they say, "Well, why are you wasting all your money on guitars?" It's an investment. You're doing a wise decision. You're planning for the future in collecting all of your guitars. So thank you, Billy Gibbons, for helping me at home. I appreciate that. Okay, the next article we have here, this one I got on, it's blabbermouth.net. It's entitled, "Gibson Sues Funko Over Unauthorized Use of Guitar Designs in Metallica, Kiss, and Guns N' Roses Figures." I like Funko Pops. I've got some Star Wars one. I'm a Star Wars guy. Of the age of growing up with Star Wars. And I had thought, man, I like those. I want to get some guitar ones too. And this says, It says, according to Law 360, guitar maker Gibson has filed a lawsuit against Funko, the manufacturer of the vinyl, the popular vinyl toy line Funko Pop. Claims that some of its guitar designs were used without permission. And they show pictures of Slash and Ace Funko Pops with the little, look like little Les Pauls. So let's see here. The suit was in court last week. Repeated use of its designs in the Slash, Ace Frehley, Paul Stanley, Kirk Hammett, and James Hetfield Funko Pops. And so Gibson wrote, the misuse of the Gibson trademarks by Funko was intended and has caused and is likely to continue to cause customer confusion. Now, this article did not say that Funko responded in any way, and we'll see how it goes. I thought it was myself pretty cool that they had some guitar-based Funko Pops, but it's business. What are you going to do? The last article, Guitar Pro 7. One of my favorites. I use it every day for teaching and playing. Guitar Pro 7 has come out with new release 7.0.7, which I've been waiting for because of all the lists. There's lots of translations and adding of different sounds and Bluetooth synchronization. It's got a whole bunch, but at the very end of all the what's new fixes, it says various crashes fixes. And I'm so happy to hear that because I've been having a few crashes with mine before. But if you haven't taken a look at Guitar Pro, I would highly recommend it. It's a great way to get your tabs off the internet. It's a great way to jot down advice. And if you're a guitar teacher, it's a great way to put your ideas on the page and tab them out or put them in the standard notation. So that's guitar news today. Those are our 3 articles. Hang on just a second, and I've got a little section of making the band. I've got 2. I went through some old ideas I've come up with, and I found 2 that I think might be good to use for this. My goal is to come up with 10 short ideas and then flesh songs out from those. And I wanted you to take a listen to them. So here, let's go ahead and put in 2 of these new ideas. That's something I came up with about a year ago. And I'm looking for something that's a little more fun, kind of bouncy, and still a little bluesy. And so I'm thinking about taking that idea and making a song out about it. And here's my second one. Being a big Allman Brothers fan, like I am, and living this part of the country, it's hard to not do an Allman Brothers type song. So that's kind of I want to do one song that had kind of an Allman Brothers feel to it. So I went back and found that one. That one was I came up with that one about a year ago too. So I kind of went back through over the past couple of days and been kind of looking at some stuff some little ideas I've come up with already to flesh the songs out. And so far from last week's episode and this one, I've got about 4 or 5 pretty solid ideas for songs. So get about 5 more ideas. And then what we'll do as we go through the making of the band is I'm going to start writing the songs out. Start getting, verse, chorus, bridge, all that kind of stuff. And then after that, we'll start working on melodies and lyrics. So that's a wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the show on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Also, I'd really appreciate if you could leave me an iTunes review for the show. If you're interested in online lessons, go on over to playguitaracademy.com and join my early adopter list to get news on the opening of the site and also a discount for early adopters. And follow me on all my different social media pages. Links to them are at playguitarpodcast.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode.